Chapter 7, Chapter 6, The Den of Thieves. Chapter 6, The Den of Thieves.
Alright, their hideout is in the south side of Mount Rocco, over there,
Ryu told Kat as they made camp for the night. They had made their way back into Tentar without much fuss. The border between the two countries wasn't defended, which had probably helped. The further they went into eastern Tentar, the less well-kept the roads had grown, until they finally petered out entirely.
It's just a couple of hours away, so we should get there sometime next morning. Doesn't that mean that Asshole and Nina are already there?
Kat asked, narrowing her eyes.
They're ahead of us, right? I doubt it.
Ryu shook his head.
They got a head start, but we're better at this than they are. Once we left the road, we probably started gaining ground on them. My guess is they're somewhere out here close to us, actually. They'll probably head in tomorrow, same as we will. Hey.
Kat scowled.
Shame about Nina. Otherwise we could just go find them and bust that jerk's head right now. If it wasn't for Nina, she wouldn't have come in the first place,
Ryu pointed out.
And we wouldn't be in this situation at all. Yeah.
She glanced around.
Whose turn is it for dinner tonight? Yours,
Ryu said promptly.
I got dinner last night. But there's a stream right over there.
She pointed at it. See?
Still your turn.
Ryu shook his head.
Come on,
she wheedled.
Please. If I do, you have to tell me how you found out about Lawton,
Ryu countered. She had been teasing him about that for the entire trip without ever actually telling him how.
Deal,
she said quickly.
I was going to do that soon, anyways. Sure, and I'm a Menero.
Ryu rolled his eyes.
Alright, start the fire. I'll see what I can get. Remember, don't get your hopes up. It's still a shitty rod. Tiny fish are still fish.
Kat shrugged.
Right.
Shaking his head, Ryu walked over to the stream and started trying his luck. As he had expected, after several hours all he got were minnows, but there were at least enough of them feed them both, and Kat was appreciative. Once they were done eating, he gave her a direct look.
Well, what?
She asked, chewing idly on a bone.
How did you find out about Lawton?
He replied with deliberate patience.
Oh, that.
She shrugged.
Rand heard you two talking through the door and asked Nero, then told me about it late that night after the rest of you were asleep. Then the two of us went out and said hi just to make sure we really could both hear him. That's it.
Ryu growled.
That's all there is to it. Pretty much, yeah.
She nodded, then chuckled wickedly.
I think Rand took it harder than me, to be honest. I just kind of rolled with it, but he was asking the big guy all sorts of questions and only getting vague answers. He's named Indian, you know. I kind of figured on that, but it didn't seem polite to ask him too much about it,
Ryu said, shrugging. He didn't know much about the name Indian faith, save that it was based in the western part of the world and that it was the national religion of the Farm clan.
You caught what passed between him and Ray, right? I'd have to have been blind to miss it, she scoffed. He's not really a hardliner, though. It won't be a problem. Didn't take him for one.
Ryu shrugged.
As for us and Bao, I'm pretty sure we're all on the same page. Saint Eva is king and god, but telling us what to do every day of our lives won't get him far.
Kat guessed.
Hoops. Is that sacre? Sacri. Sacrilege.
Ryu replied.
I really have no idea. I wouldn't worry too much about it, though, as long as you don't talk like that around Ray next time we run into him.
Thanks. She frowned thoughtfully.
What about Nero? Somehow, I get the idea that Nero's religious preferences would best be described as variable,
Ryu said dryly.
Can't argue that one.
Kat chuckled.
We shouldn't have any issues about that on the team, then. Good to know.
She snapped her fingers.
That reminds me. You were saying something about an offer I might be interested in, back in Corsair. I was wondering when the best time to bring that up would be.
Ryu leaned back, eyes on the stars.
It's like this. Me and Bao are rangers right now, but we never planned on doing that for the rest of our lives. What we've always really wanted to do is start up our own independent group, once we had the money, gear, and people for it. I wouldn't go so far as to say we're ready to start advertising or anything, but this situation is bringing in more of the former than we've seen in a long time, and that leads to the second. Which leaves the third,
Cat concluded.
You're asking if I'd like to sign on for that kind of thing long term. Exactly.
Ryu nodded.
As far as I can tell, we work well together. Alright, hell with it.
She smiled.
It's not like I have anywhere else to go anyways, and that line of work sounds like it might be fun. Count me in. Does that offer extend to Rand, too? Definitely,
Ryu said firmly.
We could use you both. Might have to talk him into it,
Cat told him.
Guys like us are one thing, but Rand probably never even thought about going into that kind of business. It's not the sort of thing he'd see himself doing, you know? He's never really had much luck with weapons, from what he's told me. He just sticks to punching things. You have to admit, though, he is pretty good at the whole punching things bit,
he pointed out.
Besides, that's not the biggest reason he'd be good to have in on this. Did he ever tell you how much time he's actually spent studying magic? Call it stereotyping, but I can't really see Rand as being a heavy reader. Couple of months, I think he said it was.
She shrugged.
You're right, he's not much of a book guy. So, Bao took years to learn the basics,
he explained.
It looks to me that Rand has some kind of natural talent for white magic. That's how he'll earn his pay. Only one guy on the healing isn't going to cut it once we have a full group going. Guess that makes enough sense.
Cat nodded.
Plus, you know, rebuilding that hideout. You were gonna use that for our base, weren't you? Exactly,
Ryu said, turning his gaze back to her.
Think you could help me talk him into it if it comes to that, then? Sure.
She grinned.
Shouldn't be too hard, really. He likes all of us already. The only real hurdle will be getting him used to the idea of himself in the business. Get him past that, and he'll be sold. Awesome.
Ryu grinned back.
Well then, welcome to the team.
Thanks. She said cheekily.
Glad to be here.
They looked at each other for a moment more, the flame flickering between them, and they both knew there was more to say, but that neither of them was going to say it just yet. In the end, they murmured their good nights and turned away, Ryu going to catch some sleep while Cat prepared to take the first watch. Closing his eyes, he tried his best to fall into slumber, to banish the confusing mix of attraction within his mind. The faces of both the girl he had always dreamed of but never seen and the one who seemed to understand him more than anybody else filled his mind when he closed his eyes, and nothing he could do could clear his thoughts of either of them. More. We still need more power. God needs more power. Give yourselves to our God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your bodies and souls to God. You are destined to become God's power. The next morning's dawn and a quick meal later, the two of them crossed the last stretch of land to Mount Rocco in fairly short order. Once they reached the mountainside itself, they concentrated on being more stealthy, creeping along through tall shrubbery and behind trees. Cat was clearly superior at it, but Ryu managed to keep from making a complete idiot of himself and keep up with her as they looked for the cave entrance.
How'd you know where to look for them in the first place, anyways?
She asked quietly, slinking low to the ground behind some bushes.
You never told me that. There weren't exactly signposts pointing the way. Saw it in some files the rangers had a while back,
Ryu explained.
I had forgotten about it until that guy mentioned Mount Rocco, back at the magic school. Jogged my memory some. That'd do it. Hey, bingo.
She pointed at a pair of thugs standing guard that were coming into view to their right. The Joker uniforms were clearly visible, even at that distance.
There we go. Shall we, then? Oh, by all means.
They approached quickly, then stopped once they were close enough, surveying the dull-eyed look of the guards and the probable intelligence implied. Putting a hand to her mouth, Cat started yelling.
Damn it, where the hell am I, even? This isn't even close to where Corsair is supposed to be. When I get my hands on that mapmaker. 10 points,
Ryu told her, watching the guards exchange a glance, smirk unpleasantly, and rush towards them. When they came crashing through the bushes, Ryu was waiting for them, leaning against a tree and whistling. Seeing their surprised looks, he pointed between and behind them, and they started to turn just as Cat slammed their heads together, making a distinctly hollow noise before they both fell.
Now that I think about it, I'm kind of ashamed that that really worked,
she added, looking down at them.
Under the circumstances, I'm kind of glad it did, myself,
Ryu pointed out.
Now comes the unpleasant part of our entry gambit. Don't remind me.
She made a face, but joined him in stripping the guards.
They'll wake up, you know. We should have brought rope or something, I guess.
Ryu shrugged.
This is why we need guys like Bao and Rand along. To think of things like that.
He sighed.
Well, we can't just go killing them now. I'm no angel, but that's a little far. Let's just hope they stay out for a long time. Can't argue with that.
She stood up with her bundle of clothes.
That going to be our policy in there, then? Don't waste any sympathy if any of them get killed, but don't go out of our way to make it happen unless we need to. It seems the best idea, under the circumstances.
Ryu gathered his own disguise as well.
Sound good. Works for me.
She walked off into the trees again, and Ryu went in the opposite direction. A few minutes later, they returned, both wearing the only slightly rancid-smelling Joker uniforms. Wearing the baggy pants covered up nearly all traces of Cat's clan, and the scarf hid her ears as well. All that left were her teeth and facial markings, and the latter could be easily explained as tattoos.
All right, let's go. The sooner we get this over with the better. Just don't rush things and slip up,
Ryu cautioned her.
We're not exactly standard Joker material here, you know. Wouldn't take much to make somebody suspicious. And were you gonna tell me how to stab somebody next, Daddy?
She asked sarcastically.
Har har har.
Ryu rolled his eyes.
All right, here we go.
They walked casually into the cave entrance, doing their best to mimic the swagger that seemed customary to the Jokers. The tunnel soon branched out into several paths. Picking one, they continued down it. Oof. A scrawny Joker rounded a corner, running into Ryu and kind of bouncing off. The two of them just stopped and regarded him coldly as he picked himself up and glared at them.
Hey, watch where you're going. My dad's the boss's younger brother, you know.
Muttering to himself, he continued off down the tunnel.
Looks like our disguises are working,
Ryu muttered.
Looks like,
Cat agreed.
I was kinda worried this gang wouldn't have any girls in it, but that guy didn't seem to care. He didn't seem like the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I don't think he'd have missed that,
Ryu agreed, continuing on. Rounding the corner, they came out into what looked like a common room. There was a wood table in the center of the room, and crates stacked against the wall, one of them open. Several Jokers lounged around, drinking from bottles.
Hey, what happened to Payne out there?
One of them called over.
He throwing a fit again. Oh, you know what that guy's like,
Ryu replied easily.
He'd try and bitch out a wall if he ran into it. That's for damn sure.
Another Joker agreed as they all laughed.
Kid makes me embarrassed to be part of the boss's family, you know? Just 'cause he's the little nephew, he thinks he's prince of the thieves or whatever. One in every family, man,
Cat chimed in.
You know how it goes. Got a point there,
another woman agreed, leaning against the crates.
Guess we should be glad he's the only one, since half this damn gang's part of our family.
She raised an eyebrow.
You two new recruits? Haven't seen you around much. Yeah, we hired on a few weeks back.
Ryu shrugged.
Seemed like the smart thing to do, you know? Way things are going in this country, we want to be on the winning side. Well, you hired on with the right people, then.
She pulled out a couple of bottles and threw them to them.
Drink up, new guys. It's all uphill from here, for the Jokers. Hey, thanks.
Cat opened her bottle on the table edge.
So what, has this gang been in the family for a long time now? Kind of, yeah.
The first Joker nodded.
See, it was the boss's dad, old Tobias Hart, who started up the gang about 50 years back. He stayed in charge until he had a little accident involving some iron fencing. Must have been some accident.
Ryu raised an eyebrow.
It also involved falling off of a roof,
the Joker explained, wincing.
It was the sharp kind of fencing, see? Ouch.
Cat made a face.
Bet the town guard loved that one when they came around in the morning. Yeah, they were real thrilled.
The second Joker snorted.
Anyways, when that happened everybody in here started sharpening their knives. See, Joker Hart wasn't technically the boss's oldest son. He had been a little indiscreet when he was younger, and old Guevara ended up being born before his actual heir. Everybody was expecting a real nasty argument to break out because of that. You guys met Guevara, right? 7 feet tall, and almost as much of a sense of humor as that mountainside out there. Oh, yeah.
Ryu nodded, bluffing quickly.
Even kind of looks like that mountainside a little. I wouldn't want to be on the wrong end of that guy no matter how much money was in it, let me tell you. Neither would anybody else with a brain in their head,
the second joker agreed.
The boss, now. He's got more brains than he knows what to do with, but he ain't exactly all that much to look at. Everybody was kind of weighing their chances, when all of a sudden, Guevara cuts that all off right then and there by saying Joker's in charge, and anybody who's got a problem with it can come to him about it. Damn.
Cat whistled.
Anybody ever figure out how Joker pulled that one off? Well, nobody's ever said anything, but we've all kind of noticed a few things by now,
the woman told her, smirking cynically.
Joker, now, he kind of inherited something from his old man, and that's that he really likes girls who don't mind how fat or ugly a man is as long as he's got any. Lots and lots of those kind of girls. But what he don't like is kids, and he sure as hell doesn't have any use for a wife. Guevara, on the other hand, has this son named Raid who's shaping up to be as tough as his dad and as smart as his uncle. So he's next in line to run things.
Ryu nodded slowly.
I get it. Pretty sharp. Joker's all sorts of sharp.
She bragged.
Like we all said, he's got brains coming out his ears.
They all laughed then, but it sounded awkward and forced.
You know, that actually happened once,
Cat cracked.
Guy with a mace. Killed the rug, let me tell you.
She paused for a moment, clearly considering the mood of the room.
So, we gonna get in trouble if we think the boss seemed a little weird when we met him. Nah.
The first joker shook his head, the last traces of mirth leaving them all.
Everybody's starting to see it. Maybe he's just sick, or something. Let's hope so,
the second one agreed.
This latest scheme of his ain't exactly up to his old standard, you know? I mean, kidnapping some girl who's supposed to be an undercover princess? Even if he's right, the royal family ain't gonna let this fly, guys. We gotta trust Joker, boys,
the woman told them firmly.
He's led us straight this far, right? He knows what he's doing. I'm just glad I wasn't assigned to go get her,
Ryu said noncommittally.
They're back, then. Yeah, got in about half an hour ago.
The first joker nodded.
She's probably meeting with the boss right now. We should know how this is going to go pretty soon, then.
Cat finished her bottle and stood up.
Well, I'm gonna go sack out. Coming, Baba. Yeah, might as well.
Ryu stood as well.
Catch you guys around.
They left the room casually, making their way back to the intersection of tunnels.
Baba, hey. It works, doesn't it?
She pointed out.
So what does that make you, then?
He asked dryly.
I'll figure that out when I need to.
She shrugged.
Come on, let's try going this way this time. Yeah, okay.
They continued down the tunnel, which started sloping downward, until they reached an iron gate that blocked it off. Leaning against it from the other side was a familiar-looking joker. It was Bill, the one who had led the group that had abducted Nina.
Boss is busy right now,
he said, not looking up from the ball he was kicking in the air idly with one foot.
Whatever it is, it can wait. Not this, it won't,
Ryu replied, thinking quickly.
We've got word from the Windian royal family. Already.
Bill looked up.
Shit, that was fast.
He paused, eyes narrowing.
Never seen you two around here before. You new recruits or something? Hired on a week ago,
Cat said again.
He's Baba, and I'm Sylvia. That's so.
Bill looked them over.
Well then, you should have been in the gang long enough to tell me who's next in line to run things, and who definitely ain't. Smart money says Raid's gonna be the one taking over after Joker gets unlucky,
Ryu replied coolly.
And it sure as hell ain't gonna be Pain, no matter what he thinks. Alright, good enough.
The goon relaxed.
Go on and open it up. Switch is in that hole over there.
He pointed at a large crater in the side of the wall near them.
Doesn't it make much sense to have it on this side, you know?
Cat complained, but her hand was moving in the hole anyways before Ryu could stop her. A moment later, she jerked back, cursing like a sailor, and a huge, brightly colored spider crawled out of the hole, hissing angrily. You fell for it. Bill crowed, pushing a hidden button on his side of the wall.
Everybody in this gang knows we keep Lil Kumo in there. I don't know who you two are, but you had better just come along nice and quiet now.
The gate lowered, and he advanced, drawing what looked like a silver dagger from his belt.
Get the bug,
Ryu said quickly.
I've got this joker. No pun intended. Right,
Cat growled, shaking her hand in the air as she drew her staff.
That's a Skandine death spider, you dumbass.
Bill told her, snickering.
Those things eat people. We train him to woe.
He jerked back as Ryu's sword missed his stomach by inches.
Damn, you guys don't listen, do you? You talk too much,
Ryu told him flatly, advancing further.
Come on, you morons.
Backing away, Bill continued to chatter as Ryu stalked him, dodging every slash.
You're probably trying to get to the boss, right? Our security isn't that lax. Right up ahead is the labyrinth. You would never make it through there to the meeting hall anyways.
He suddenly reversed his actions, darting into the side of Ryu's swing. His dagger flickered out, and Ryu blocked with his arm, taking the blade in the meaty part of his tricep. Hissing in pain, Ryu lashed out himself immediately, before Bill could retreat, and lopped off the offending hand. Howling, the Joker pulled another dagger and lunged again, but Ryu was able to sidestep the attack. As Bill whirled around, Ryu finished him off, unceremoniously running his sword between his ribs. Pulling it back out, he turned away from the corpse and glanced at Cat.
You okay? Fantastic,
Cat replied sardonically, clubbing the broken remnants of the spider over and over again with her staff.
Ugh. Getting this crap off my staff isn't gonna be pretty. He said that thing was poison.
Ryu remembered, snapping his fingers.
We need to get you out of here, now. No worries.
She grinned at him, entirely unconcerned.
I still had that antidote from August, remember? He was using Skandine death spider venom. Rand told me. As soon as that jerk said that, I took the antidote. I didn't get nearly as much of a dose as you probably did, either. I'm feeling fine.
She gave the wound on his arm a direct look.
Unlike some people here I could name. Yeah.
Glaring at the wound, Ryu pulled some herbs and bandages out of his pockets and wrapped it up.
This is why we should keep a white mage with us at all times. Take it up with Bao and Rand,
she told him.
You gonna be okay. It's my offhand.
He shrugged.
Hurts, but I've had worse.
Once his arm was wrapped up, he took the dagger and examined it.
This actually isn't bad. I didn't think silver would be that useful for making weapons. It's probably enchanted,
Cat suggested.
Yeah, that'd do it.
Taking the dagger's sheath from Bill's corpse and attaching it to his own belt, he stowed the blade and sheathed his own as well.
Come on, let's go.
Shoving Bill's corpse into the spider hole, they walked past the lowered gate, and on into a maze of tunnels. Looking around, Ryu shook his head.
This is going to suck. You think so?
Cat muttered, glancing down one of them as a pair of rotting corpses dragged themselves out, moaning.
Ghouls. I hate ghouls. Who doesn't hate ghouls?
Ryu asked Riley as they each dispatched one in short order.
What, do they just keep monsters in this part of the cave to back up their security? Whoa.
He grabbed Cat and pulled her down one tunnel.
All right, I'll bite,
she whispered as they watched a pair of blue flames float past in the air where they'd been.
What are those, and why aren't we fighting them? Will-o-wisps,
he muttered.
It's possible to kill them physically, but we'd be at it all day. Magic's the only real way to do it anywhere near efficiently.
They waited until the spirits had passed, then walked back out and began exploring. Before they had gone too far, another Joker came out of one of the passages, adjusting his belt.
New here?
He asked cheerfully.
You're on the right track. Just keep making right turns, see?
He chuckled at himself.
Thanks, man.
Ryu nodded.
Got news for the boss. Figured as much.
The Joker nodded, walking back the way they had come.
Just don't say anything stupid, you hear? Boss has been getting kind of weird, lately. You know what I'm saying, right? Boy, do we ever,
Cat called, prompting another laugh from him.
Well, that was informative. Yup.
Ryu nodded, then sighed as a group of giant green leeches, even larger than those that lived on Mount Phoebe, slithered out of another tunnel towards them.
Knew something like that was about to happen. It never stops,
Cat agreed.
Let's get M.
Once they had disposed of the infestation, the two of them continued through the labyrinth, following the Joker's instructions. Before long, they reached the end, emerging into a vast, multi-leveled cavern. Several staircases led down levels of rock to the bottom, where Nina was being shepherded by 5 goons to the back of the hall. She looked dirty and unkempt, but otherwise unharmed. Just like before, seeing her almost took his breath away, but he managed to keep it under control. For a multitude of reasons, this was obviously not the time.
Hey!
A joker to their left as they entered snarled quietly.
The boss is busy right now, dumbasses. Whatever it is, it can wait. Sure it can.
Turning on him, Kat rammed her staff into his throat, pinning him to the wall.
Thanks for standing guard. Shift's over.
Pulling it away, she stepped over the corpse, and Ryu followed her to peek over the edge of the ledge.
There you are.
The fattest man Ryu had ever seen boomed as Nina approached. He was middle-aged and more bloated than even Count Trout had been, his vast gut so large that a tunic that could have fit 3 of Ryu had burst open. Both it and his pants were a rusty red, and they looked well-tailored, a waist judging by the food stains all over them. His hair and beard were both short and black, and his eyes were very large and white, pupils tiny pinpricks of darkness.
You're even cuter than I'd heard, little Nina. Oh, a compliment,
she said sardonically.
Oh, joy. Heh.
He leaned forward as they approached, not bothering to rise from the wooden stool he sat on behind a dining table.
You're really cute when you're mad. How about showing me that pretty face up close, hey? That's about enough of this.
She stopped in her tracks.
I came here for one reason, and one reason alone. My sister. For your own health, I'd suggest that you turn her over to me, as quickly as possible. Hey, baby.
One of the goons growled.
That ain't the way you talk to the boss.
He shoved her roughly forward.
Keep your damned hands off me.
Nina snarled, whirling on him and blasting him with a compact fireball. The spell blew him back on his ass, charred and smoking, but still alive, judging by his whimpering.
The next fool who touches me gets that one at full power.
She turned back to Joker.
Now, bring me my sister. Ha!
Joker laughed, his voice deep and nasty.
Girls got a temper. I like that. Alrighty, Missy. Let's see if I can see the family resemblance, hey.
He snapped his fingers, and from behind a boulder to their left, another thug shoved Nina forward, hands tied behind her back. The young girl was wearing the same kind of dress she had back in hometown, but she looked like she hadn't slept well or bathed in a week.
Sister?
She asked quietly.
Nina? You came here for me. I did,
Nina replied, eyes locked on hers.
I'm going to save you, Mina. That's her, then?
Kat asked quietly.
Yeah.
Ryu slowly nodded.
Now how are we going to solve this one? Ho ho ho.
Joker laughed again.
Well, isn't this cute? Sisterly love is such a beautiful thing. But not just yet. I told you to let her go.
Nina spun on him.
Keep pushing me, and I'll kill every last one of you. Now.
Joker wagged a finger and glanced at the goon behind Mina, who smiled wickedly and held a knife to her neck.
That's not polite, young lady. And here I heard you were a civilized kind of girl. I was kinda looking forward to that, after day of nothing but roughnecks around here. Now let's try that again, shall we? I'll even tell you the words to use.
His smile widened.
Say I will join your organization, use my magic in your service, and follow your every command, in exchange for my sister's life and freedom. I swear it on my name, and the name of my ancestor, the Queen of the Sky. How did you know about that?
Nina whispered, color draining from her face.
That oath. Nobody should know what it means. I have my sources.
Joker's eyes were dark, and there was no jocularity in his voice now.
I'm not taking no for an answer, girlie. Say it, or else Kodomo over there is gonna start slicing pieces off your sister. I'll tell you what, I'll even have my men help you with it. Boys. Bring her up right here, and get her on her knees. That does it.
Kat spat, standing back up.
Let's go. We're taking back that hostage, here and now. Right.
Ryu pointed.
We'll sneak around the other side of that boulder.
They crept down, unobserved by anybody below, as Nina was forced forward. Rounding the boulder, they came up on Kodomo from behind. He was watching the spectacle, and his knife hand was straying from Mina's neck.
Why are you doing this?
Nina was asking, and her voice was very small and quiet now.
If you know that much about us, you know my parents will never acknowledge my existence. Try to use me to get to them, and they'll completely ignore you. You're wasting your time. I'm getting a pretty girl working for me, ain't I?
Joker's grin was vile.
But that ain't all. You're right, I know all that. And I know why you ain't living in Windia no more. If your parents don't want their dirty little secret to become public knowledge, they should be willing to make all sorts of concessions under the table. You wouldn't dare,
Nina whispered desperately.
Try me.
Joker's grin vanished, and he stared at her coldly once more.
Now then, no more stalling. I'll have your oath, here and now, or your sister starts by losing an ear, and it only gets worse from there.
Nina's head was bowed.
Leave this part to me,
Kat muttered to Ryu, continuing forward. Moving like a snake, her hand shot out and grabbed Kodomo's knife hand, breaking it as she pulled it and him away from Mina. His cry of pain was cut short as she grabbed his neck with her other hand, breaking it with a quick jerk, then threw the corpse aside disdainfully.
Who?
Mina stared at her, eyes widening at the violence of Kodomo's death, then turned back to her sister.
Nina, no. Don't do it. Mina.
Nina's eyes turned to her, along with all the men gathered around her.
What's happening? Hey, that's my line.
Joker bellowed.
What in Saint Eva's name is going on here? What do you mugs think you're doing? Sorry.
Ryu threw his pink scarf on the floor, and Kat followed suit.
We quit. Your dress code is just too ugly for us to stand. They ain't ours, boss.
One of the goons below yelled.
I know that, you nitwit.
Joker shouted back.
Who the hell are you two, then? Rangers, on contract.
Ryu said with a grim smile.
We're here to investigate a missing person. Miss Nina, your headmaster from the magic school has hired us to bring you back home, by any means necessary. We apologize for the inconvenience.
He turned to Mina.
Didn't think we'd be meeting again so soon, Your Highness. You might want to stand back. This is probably going to get a little ugly pretty soon. Of course.
Mina backed away from them, but remained within eyesight.
It's you two.
Nina stared up at them.
Rangers, hey.
Joker stared as well, then snapped his fingers.
Boys, show 'em what we think of rangers around these parts, why don't cha? Right, boss.
One of the goons said, snickering, as the five of them advanced on Ryu and Kat, drawing their knives.
2 each.
Ryu asked, unconcerned, drawing his sword and dagger.
Whoever finishes first gets the last one,
Kat agreed, spinning her staff.
Cocky, ain't cha?
The leader snarled.
We'll see how.
Whatever he was going to say was cut off as Ryu threw the silver dagger, right through his left eye into his brain. Stiffening, he collapsed on the floor.
That's one,
Ryu said, moving forward to engage another thug.
Show off,
Kat commented, charging one of her own. Holding her staff vertically, she brought up the bottom end, deflecting his thrust and ringing his jaw. Before he could recover, she spun it horizontally, cracking his head and knocking him to the floor. Another goon was at her side by then, and his knife was coming towards her chest. Fortunately, a flick of her staff diverted most of the attack, and he only drew a small amount of blood. Rounding on him, she kicked his feet out from under him, then dodged as he threw his knife with much less accuracy than Ryu had, still managing to nick the side of her head. Snarling, she rammed her staff into the center of his chest before he could rise. Ryu was busy with his own opponent. The remaining 2 goons were more cautious than the first, circling him warily while splitting up. Ryu quickly put his back to the boulder and made a beckoning motion, and with a glance at each other, they advanced from either side. Shrugging, Ryu charged the one on the right, blocking his knife thrust with his sword. Grabbing his arm, he then pulled him to the right, into his friend's path. Before either of them could recover, Ryu the thug before him with a slash to the neck and advanced on the other one. The last goon standing backed up, then suddenly lunged at Ryu. Before he could connect, though, he stopped suddenly, making an odd, whining noise as he dropped his dagger. A moment later, the fireball that had hit him in the back burned the rest of the way through him, leaving a charred crater in his chest. His eyes stared down at it, and then he collapsed, twitching for a few moments before going still.
2 each, wasn't it?
Nina asked coolly, all traces of her previous weakness gone now. She was floating about 3 feet off the ground, dark wings beating as they held her up.
And I only see one more left for me in here, now that you've cleaned up.
She regarded the now cringing Joker with cold wrath.
I like the way you think,
Kat told her, stepping on the neck of the first goon she had dropped as she walked past. Ryu joined her, and they took up positions flanking Nina, all 3 staring Joker down. Mina walked forward as well, though she remained carefully behind them.
Go right ahead. He's all yours,
Ryu agreed.
Wait.
Joker held up his hands frantically.
You don't want to do this, trust me. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I screwed up, I get it. Let's all just be nice and civilized about this, hey? This is a no-win for any of us, if this keeps up. Calm down, and let's talk, like reasonable people. I don't want to do this. Funny.
Nina cast another fireball spell, aimed not at Joker, but above him.
I do.
The blast hit the cavern wall, blowing off enough rocks and rubble to bury the fat crook completely. He screamed, once, as it all came down on him, and then he was gone, only a pile of debris remaining.
Like you said, I'm afraid I'm not feeling particularly civilized today. So much for that.
Cat dusted her hands off.
All taken care of, then, except for the getaway. Probably shouldn't even bother with our disguises,
Ryu suggested.
Nobody'd buy it if we were bringing you two along. We'll just have to hope we don't run into many, if any, of them. And that nobody heard anything down in here. You talk about it so casually,
Mina murmured, sinking to the floor and holding her knees.
Do you do this sort of thing a lot? We've seen worse,
Ryu told her, smiling.
We're just glad you're okay. I don't know who you are, but thank you, both of you.
Nina turned to them, descending to the floor again.
Without you, this would have been.
She trailed off, eyes dark and sad once more.
Doesn't bear thinking about.
Cat shook her head.
No thanks needed, Your Highness. Glad to help out. These assholes were just asking for it, you know. Nina, please,
she said quietly.
Nobody's called me Your Highness in 10 years, and I'd rather it didn't start again now. That title. It isn't mine to claim, anymore. Nina it is, then,
Ryu agreed, idly examining the dragon's tear as he started to relax as well. It was a habit of his to scan the room on a whim by now. Despite her words of gratitude, Nina was still only reading as a dull yellow. It seemed she was slow to trust, or to grow fond of people. Mina was more favorably inclined. The yellow-green mix she had shown when they had last met was more the latter than the former now. He moved past Cat quickly. She had brightened to a light blue, and this wasn't the time to think about that. And then, as the dragon tear moved past the pile of rocks that had fallen onto Joker, it went a venomous black, and his blood ran cold.
This isn't over,
he yelled, drawing his sword again.
Cat. He's going to get back up. Ha 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 ha.
Joker laughed then, as the rocks began to shift. His voice had changed, the deep bass now sounding disgustingly wet and slimy.
You know something? That hurt, Princess Nina Windia. That hurt a lot, but I asked you nicely not to do that, you know. You really should have listened to me. Mina, get back.
Nina said sharply, quickly hovering above the floor once again.
What's going on here? Something very unpleasant,
Cat told her, hands tightening on her staff.
No way. Not again, damn it all. I told you I didn't want to do this,
Joker continued to ramble, pulling himself free of the debris.
I told you didn't want to do this, didn't I? But oh, no, you didn't listen. You just had to go and piss me off, now didn't you? Now look what you've done.
With a grunt, he threw one of the largest rocks aside, revealing his transformed state. He was completely inhuman now, a purple reptile with a yellow, plated belly. Almost spherical, his roundness made him seem short, but he still loomed over them all, though not quite as much as August. His arms and legs were almost vestigial, pitifully stunted, but they scattered debris with inhuman strength regardless. Twin horns adorned his bald head, above tiny, squinty eyes. It was his mouth that was truly grotesque, a vertical slit without neck or chin filled with needle fangs and a disgustingly long, slavering red tongue that flopped almost absently out to one side.
What is this?
Nina demanded, semi-hysterically, as Mina screamed.
Seems Joker here went and crossed the line from criminal scumbag to requesting demonic possession, or possibly transformation a while back,
Ryu said flatly.
Not sure if the difference actually means anything to us. Either way, why am I not surprised by this? Explains a lot, really. Those goons were saying he had been acting weird lately. Oh, that's just what my day needed.
Joker continued to complain, kicking the last of the rebel away.
You schmucks know about us. Perfect. But hey, maybe it's for the best. Now I've got even more reason to kill your sorry asses. Could be the guys down below might even give me some points for taking care of a leak. Just hope I don't get bitched out for wiping you in the process, Nina. You've gone and made me lose my temper now, and that means you're dead meat? No helping it. Dem shame, too. I was looking forward to seeing their faces when I handed you over to them on a silver platter. You. What?
Nina's jaw dropped, then clenched as her eyes flashed.
That was why. So all that shit was just a story you told your men,
Ryu said coldly.
You were going to sell her to infinity, were you? You really are a fat bastard. Thanks.
Joker chuckled, only the outer edges of his vast mouth turning up slightly while the center still hung slack.
But compliments aren't getting you nowhere. Like I said, her destiny don't matter no more. I'm killing her, and you too while I'm at it. Now take a deep breath, kiddies.
His gross tongue retracted as his mouth closed suddenly, and then he inflated, swelling up like a balloon, sides and cheeks bulging grotesquely. When his mouth burst open, it actually blew him off his feet, tiny limbs wiggling in the air, as clouds of pink gas exploded out and spread through the air.
Oh, shit.
Ryu snarled.
Cover your faces, everybody. Now.
He snatched a scarf from a fallen Joker and wrapped it around his face, and saw Cat doing the same out of the corner of his eye. Before he could glance at the other two girls, the gas was upon him, covering every inch of his body as it washed past. Even with the cloth covering his face, it was incredibly painful. The gas burned into his skin like the air itself was attacking him, and what got through the filter into his lungs was even worse, igniting his chest from the inside out. He collapsed, wheezing, but somehow still managed to keep the cloth over his face as the clouds moved past him.
Son of a...
Cat started to yell, then stopped, coughing horribly. She was crouched on the ground as well, but she had her own scarf on, as did Nina, who was sitting limply on the ground, head down. He couldn't see Mina, and before he could look more, Joker was stomping towards them, tiny feet ridiculously loud as he clumped along the cavern floor.
Quick thinking, but not quick enough,
the demon told them as he approached Cat.
Thought it was just some crap you would find out in the field dealing with monsters? I don't think so. This here's real poison gas, and you're all gonna die nice and slow, now. Unless you all ask me real nice, then maybe I'll off you quick and painful. Saint Eva, do you ever shut up?
Cat roared, rising to her feet and bringing her staff up in an underhand swing, smashing him right in the gut with enough power to actually launch him into the air towards Ryu. Despite the force, the demon didn't seem particularly harmed, and simply glared as he came down towards Ryu.
No. Don't even think about it, wise ass. What the lady said,
Ryu replied shortly, swinging his sword almost like a bat. The edge clashed off of the demon's plated belly, while his scaly flesh simply flexed under the impact like rubber, but it still drew blood while knocking him into the air once again, this time towards the fallen princess.
Hey, Nina. Your turn. Thank you,
she said, head turning up as the scarf fell from her face.
I've been looking forward to this.
She held out her hands, and from them, large round chunks of ice shot out at high velocity, slamming into Joker in midair. Folding up around them, he flew away from them into the back of the room, where he bounced off the wall and fell to the ground. Wincing, the princess flapped her dark wings and lifted up a foot off the ground.
I don't suppose there's any hope that we actually killed him this time. Not a chance,
Cat growled as she and Ryu approached him.
They call them demons for a reason. If this asshole's anything like the last one we had to fight, it's going to take a lot more than that to put him down. I was afraid of that.
Sighing, Nina floated after them.
No helping it, I suppose. Let's get down to it, then. Oh, like that's going to happen.
Joker bellowed, getting back up. He was bruised and battered, and his purple scales were now a pale lavender, but he still glared at them.
Tough cookies, are you? We'll see how you like another dose, then. Shit.
Cat glanced at Ryu, both of them thinking the same thing. They might be able to cling to life through another attack, but there was no way Nina could. As Joker puffed up again, body grossly distorted, they both dashed towards him, both knowing they weren't going to make it there in time to stop him. His mouth burst open, and the gas poured out, but before it could wash over them, something in the air itself responded. The clouds divided like they had been cut with a giant, invisible blade and flowed to the sides of the three of them, but not over them.
What the hell?
Joker yelled.
Go.
Nina told them.
I'll keep the gas off of you.
Cat and Ryu didn't bother wasting words, they simply charged, sword and staff at the ready, as Joker scowled in anger.
You think it's gonna be that easy?
The demon snapped. His tongue retracted again, but then it lashed out, flickering against Ryu and Cat like a whip. By the feel of it, it was edged, and each strike left a trail of blood and pain across their bodies. Cursing, Cat buckled and stumbled, remaining on her feet through sheer effort alone. Ryu turned his head to look at her, and another lash ripped open his right calf, causing him to swear and stop as well. Once again, Nina saved them both, recasting the cold spell. Shots of ice flew out once more, ramming into Joker again. This time, they all saw them explode into freezing dust upon impact. Joker fell back, needle fangs chattering as his scales paled even further, but then rose once more, tongue extending a ridiculous length to hit the black mage. She cried out in pain, falling to the floor again, but kept her head up as Ryu and Cat used the distraction to continue charging Joker. Seeing them coming, the demon struck at them again, but now Cat had his measure. Dodging and weaving, rolling and jumping, the acrobatic Warren managed to dodge almost all of the strikes aimed at her, and those that did find her were only glancing blows. Ryu wasn't so lucky, but he gritted his teeth and endured the pain, charging until they reached him. Sword and staff lashed out, crushing the demon from both sides like a vice, and his bulbous body flexed upwards, head expanding and mouth gaping. In that instant, Nina struck. Her third cast of ice magic hit Joker again, but this time, the shots flew right into his distorted maw with a series of ugly-sounding thumps. He sagged back, coughing and choking, as the magic flowed through his body from the inside out. His scales hardening and turning white, his body stiffening up like a plank, he stared up at them from empty, pale grey eyes as they stood around him, watching him die.
"It's you,"
he whispered.
"You're the one. Damn it, I should have known. I take one damn step out of line, and you're on me like that. You too. And her. All three of you come in for me? No wonder I didn't stand a chance." He took a deep breath, and they could hear the ice inside his very lungs cracking as he did so. "Just my luck, hey? I don't believe this shit." "First August, now you," Ryu said quietly. "What the hell are you talking about?" "Ha." Joker managed to smile again, eyes glittering. "Kiss my ass, all three of you, and maybe I'll tell you. We can persuade you to feel more talkative, if it comes to that," Nina told him flatly. "I was joking, dumbass," Joker wheezed, still smiling. "Like I'd get away with spilling the beans, even if I wanted to? Not gonna happen. Get a load of this." In the blink of an eye, he erupted in black fire, just like August had. The three of them stepped back, Nina staring in horror, as he continued to rant. "Don't get too cocky just because you won today. The whole world's on the clock, and it's ticking down to the end of the line for all of us. God's time is at hand." And then he was gone, a slight breeze in the cavern blowing away the ashes. "Is it a bad sign that I pretty much saw that coming?" Cat asked Riley after a few moments of silence. "Might be a warning that you're getting used to this happening," Ryu replied. "In which case, yes, it's a bad sign. We don't want to be tempted to ask us about our special rates on demonic extermination on our cards." "You talk about it so casually," Nina echoed her sister Riley. "Do you do this sort of thing a lot?" Before either of them could reply, her wings gave out and she crumpled to the floor, coughing uncontrollably. A moment later, the two of them both followed suit, new waves of pain flowing through their bodies. "The poison!" Ryu gasped between coughs. "Damn it, it's finally kicking in. We'll never make it to..." He stopped talking, but still kept coughing, as he watched purifying light gather around Nina, leaving her looking and acting much more healthy once it was done. "I'm afraid I'm not very good at white magic," Nina told them as she walked closer, emerging from behind the massive boulder. Turning to Cat, she cast the spell on her next. "I haven't learned much yet. I just hope a general purification will work. Do you think the poison's a particularly strong one?" "Nah," Cat told her, smiling as the poison left her system. "This doesn't feel nearly as bad as that last stuff I got hit with up there. Me and Ryu here VE both taken doses of that and lived through it. This should be fine. Thanks." "You do realize that was Skandine death spider venom," Ryu pointed out as he was healed. "If you hadn't had the actual antidote, you would have been dead. And don't even get me started on when I got hit with that." He shook his head. "You're right, though, this feels a lot better. Thanks, Mina. I kind of doubt we'd have made it to a doctor in time." "My pleasure." She smiled wanly, then dropped it, eyes widening. "Oh, no, where did they come from?" "What?" Nina said sharply, all three of them turning around. There, at the back of the cavern, a line of unfriendly-looking jokers were leaning against the wall. "It never stops." Cat sighed, starting towards them. "All right, let's." Wait.
Ryu held up a hand, and she paused. Walking past her, he stopped in front of the largest of the Jokers by far, a grim-faced man almost as tall as Joker had been wide, and met his eyes.
Do we have a problem here? We're not happy about all of these bodies,
the man told him flatly.
But none of them are family, aside from my little brother himself. And we saw all of that. What he had become. What he was going to do.
He closed his eyes.
Get out of here, now, and don't come back. That goes for all of you. Acceptable. More than.
Ryu nodded.
Let's do what he says, people. By all means,
Nina agreed, her wings lifting her into the air again, and Kat nodded silently. The two of them closed ranks around Mina, and they all followed Ryu out of the hall. Once they were out, she glanced at Kat.
Are we trusting their word? You know, normally I wouldn't be too keen on counting on that honor among thieves stuff, she conceded. But the look in their eyes back there said it all. Even guys like them draw the line at demons. Who knows what Joker would have gotten them into next, if we hadn't killed him? Nah, I think they were telling the truth.
She grimaced.
Of course, just because nothing human's going to bother us doesn't mean we won't run into a couple more monsters in this stupid underground maze here. I would think that would cheer you up,
Ryu told her.
You feeling all right? Just exhausted?
She shook her head.
I need a drink, a bath, and about 10 hours of sleep, which I'm pretty much not going to get except for the bath part. Suppose I should be glad there's a stream outside. A bath right now would almost convert me to any religion of your choice,
Nina murmured, and Mina made a noise of agreement. Seeing a will-o-wisp, she bisected it with another air cutter.
Not quite. But almost. More importantly, is this labyrinth very long? I'm starting to run low on magic power. I was going to ask if you ever ran out,
Ryu joked.
It's not all that long, and we know the way. Once we're out of it, we should be able to get out of the cave without any further difficulties, as long as any Jokers up ahead are clear on the deal. Then it's just a matter of making it back to where our last camping spot was, by that stream. The sooner we make it there, the better,
Kat said firmly. None of them could disagree with that, and they spent the rest of the trip back mostly in silence, focusing on hurrying along. As they'd hoped, once they were clear of the labyrinth they were able to leave the cavern in peace, without seeing a single Joker. Once outside, they continued back to where Kat and Ryu had made camp the night before. The only monsters that got in their way outside were an unlucky pair of man-eating plants, which Ryu, Kat, and Nina disposed of quickly between them. Once back at the campsite, visiting the stream was definitely the first priority, especially for Mina and Nina. While they took turns on that, the other three prepared for the evening, Ryu building the campfire with first Nina's help, then Mina's. Meanwhile, Kat hunted down dinner, coming back with a wild boar just in time for her turn at the stream. Once she was done, Ryu went himself. Something about the Joker gas had left him feeling contaminated, and he understood the desire to try and wash that off. When he came back from the stream, the stars were slowly appearing as the sun set overhead, and the campfire was blazing cheerily. Kat was attending to the cooking, while Nina and Mina were sitting under a tree, having a quiet, private-looking conversation. He quickly decided not to intrude on that, going over to talk with Kat instead. Crossing over to her, he gave her a tired smile, which she returned.
Long day. Those keep happening, don't they?
She replied dryly.
Any thoughts yet on what we did to deserve all this? Whatever it was, I'm sorry already,
he joked, then glanced over at Nina and Mina.
So, what are we going to do about this? That's kind of what they're talking about now,
Kat explained.
Nina asked me for details about the job old man Yoji hired us for. I told her we'd escort her back to hometown so we could get paid, and that seemed mostly okay with her, but I think there was something else on her mind. Before she could bring it up, though, Mina got upset and started talking about how Nina should come back to India with her instead because of this incident. They got all private before she said much about that, though. It's probably for the best.
Ryu glanced at them, then lowered his voice.
I've been thinking, actually. It's a bit roundabout, and it'll take a while, but we could always offer to bring Nina to hometown, and then escort Mina back to India after that. I doubt her original escort is still anywhere near here, if they're alive at all. We were planning on heading that way next anyways, since it's the only lead we have left. And we stand a good chance of getting paid again for helping Mina get back home, right?
Kat added with a wink.
That would be a nice bonus,
Ryu admitted.
I'm not going to insist on it, though. Let's just take that casually and see what happens.
He winced as Mina stood up and stalked away in a huff, sitting back down with her back to them all.
Ouch. Looks like that didn't go so well. Somehow, I don't think we should ask why. No.
Kat agreed as Nina stood up as well and walked closer to the campfire, face carefully blank.
Mr. Battison,
she said calmly.
I understand your desire to fulfill the terms of your current contract with the Orion Magic School and return me to them as quickly as possible, but before that, I'd like to retain your services on a similar matter.
She glanced at Mina.
My sister will need an escort back to her own home, and you seem reliable. I had intended on requesting your services after we had returned to hometown, but Mina is insisting that I return to Windia with her. She's young, and she's having trouble seeing certain realities of our situation, no matter how I try to explain them to her.
She shook her head, a look of obscure pain filling her eyes.
If you would prefer not to share the details, that's fine,
Ryu told her.
We understand. Thank you.
Nina smiled, but her eyes weren't in it.
Mina told me that you were reliable, not that I doubted that after what happened back there. I'm glad to see you can be discreet as well, especially under the circumstances. Don't worry, Your Highness,
Kat told her.
We know how to keep our mouths shut about who you are. Thank you.
She inclined her head.
And please, like I said, just Nina, Mississippi. Kat-chan, but if that's the case, stick with Kat, okay?
She asked with a wink.
Fair's fair, and all that. Same here,
Ryu agreed.
I'd prefer Ryu myself, if it's all the same to you. As for your request, I think that's manageable. I was actually going to offer to bring her home after you myself, since we were planning on making a trip to India once this business was settled anyways. We have something else to look into there. Going there first will make things a little more complicated, but we'll figure something out. And hey, it's closer if we just go straight there. Then we're agreed,
Nina said, and they all nodded.
I'm afraid I don't have much money on me at the moment, but if we agree on a reasonable payment now, I'm sure the Windian royal family will abide by it. Let's not worry about that, hey.
Ryu replied.
If the royal family wants to compensate us, I won't say no, but I'm not going to insist on it. We're taking Mina back home because we're friends and we're headed that way anyways. No need to make anything too formal about it. You're sure?
Nina blinked, looking actually startled for the first time.
I really think we should come to some sort of arrangement. You're wasting your time, Nina,
Kat advised her, chuckling.
If there's one thing I've learned about this guy, it's that his head's even harder than mine, and that's saying something. I won't press the point, then.
Nina smiled again, and this time it seemed more heartfelt. Ryu didn't check the dragon's tear yet, but he had the feeling that if he did, there would be at least a little green in it now.
Thank you, both of you. Our pleasure.
Kat glanced at the meat.
Looks like this is about done. Why don't we dig in? I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't plan on leaving much of this for the morning. Shame we couldn't grab any ale from the jokers on the way out. I doubt it would have been a good idea, but I'm in agreement with you on the food.
Nina glanced at the meat, and Mina turned her head as well.
Have you two been working together long, then? Mina said the last time she met you, you had a different partner, Ryu. Yes, I was wondering about that,
Mina admitted, standing up somewhat reluctantly to get her share of dinner.
Nothing's happened to Bao, has it? It's a long story, but I guess we've got time,
Ryu said as he started to carve the meat for them all.
No harm in telling it again, I guess. And would it include when and why you two previously encountered a demon?
Nina asked keenly.
I'm rather interested in that, for a number of reasons. Somehow, I thought you would be,
Kat replied, the dryness of her tone belying the serious look on her face.
Can't say I blame you, either. Just be warned, you might not like what you hear, on that score. The more I find out about demons, the less I like what I'm learning. Under the circumstances, I can live with that,
Nina decided.
Sometimes we all have to do things we don't like. Can't argue with that,
Ryu agreed, passing out meat. Once everybody had some, they all sat down around the fire.
Alright, we might as well start at the beginning. I'm sure Mina remembers the job me and my partner, Bao, took for her back in hometown.
And as the night crept on, he told the story, the three girls all listening, occasionally asking for or adding detail. Despite the shitty day, there were worse ways to spend an evening. A smooth criminal.